In the vast and elegant grand hall of the castle, the light from the chandeliers reflected off the gilded mirrors, creating a soft, magical glow that enveloped the room. Musicians played a delicate melody, and ladies and gentlemen danced gracefully across the floor, adorned in dazzling attire and charming smiles. Lord Oscar, a man of noble appearance and deep eyes, watched the movement with interest, yet his gaze was fixed on a single figure, Isabelle. She stood beside her fiancé, Baron Poulin, an older man with a stern demeanor and rigid posture. Isabelle, with her honey-colored hair and a pale blue gown that accentuated her sparkling eyes, looked ethereal. She smiled warmly at everyone around her, but there was a subtle sadness in her gaze, visible only to those who looked closely enough. Oscar stood near the grand window of the hall, from where he could see the full moon illuminating the gardens outside. He held a glass of red wine, though he seemed uninterested in the drink. His thoughts were entirely on Isabelle, a woman who had long captivated his heart. Isabelle's engagement to Baron Poulin had been arranged by their families, an union advantageous in wealth and power, yet devoid of love. Lord Oscar knew this, for he could see beyond appearances. The music shifted to a slow waltz, and couples began to move onto the dance floor. Oscar watched as Baron Poulin took Isabelle's hand and led her to the center of the hall. They danced, but their movements felt forced, mechanical. Oscar couldn't tear his eyes away from Isabelle, and for a fleeting moment she met his gaze. Time seemed to stop. There was no Baron, no ballroom, no music. Only Oscar and Isabelle, locked in a look that spoke louder than 1,000 words. Oscar knew he had to act, to fight for the love that had long been hidden in his heart. He couldn't allow Isabelle to be condemned to a life without passion or true affection. Determination swelled within him. He took a step forward, ready to change the course of their lives. One evening, during another event, Lord Oscar made a decision. The sight of Isabelle, so radiant, yet so sorrowful, ignited his resolve. He knew he had to risk everything and confess his feelings, even if the fear of rejection haunted him. That night, as the ballroom lights cast dancing shadows on the walls and music filled the air, he decided the moment had come. Waiting for an opportunity when Isabelle was alone, Oscar approached with his heart pounding. She stood by the balcony, gazing at the full moon with a distant expression. He took a deep breath, summoning the courage to speak. "Isabelle," he began, his voice trembling slightly. She turned, startled to see him so close. Her eyes, shimmering under the moonlight, met his. "You shine brighter than all the stars in the sky." For a brief instant, time seemed to stand still. Isabelle looked at Oscar with a mix of surprise and emotion. But then reality returned, and she took a small step back. "Lord Oscar, please," she said softly but firmly. "I am engaged to Baron Poulin. You know that." Oscar felt a wave of despair. "I know, Isabelle, but I can't hide what I feel any longer. I've admired you for so long. I see your kindness, your courage, your beauty. I can't imagine my life without you." Isabelle turned her gaze away, her eyes now filled with sorrow. "Lord Oscar, you don't understand. This engagement is not just a formality. It's an important alliance between our families. I have no choice." Oscar stepped closer, reaching for her hand, but she withdrew again. "But what about what you want, Isabelle? What about your heart? You deserve to be happy." She looked at him with deep melancholy. "It's not that simple. What I want doesn't matter. My duty is to my family and to the Baron." Oscar felt a knot tighten in his chest. He knew she was trapped in a web of duty and expectation, but he also knew her feelings were real. "Please, just tell me one thing. Do you feel anything for me?"
Isabelle hesitated, her expression softening for a moment. "Lord Oscar, I can't allow myself to think of anything other than my commitment to the Baron." The pain in Oscar's heart was almost tangible, but he knew he couldn't force her to choose between love and obligation. He looked at her one last time, trying to memorize every detail of her face. "If one day things change, if you ever have the chance to choose for yourself, know that I'll be waiting for you, Isabelle." She nodded, a silent tear slipping down her cheek. "Thank you, Lord Oscar. I will never forget what you've said." With those words, Oscar stepped away, leaving Isabelle alone on the balcony. He knew he had risked everything, and though he hadn't won her heart, at least he had spoken his truth. The future was uncertain, but a small flame of hope still burned within him, a hope that one day Isabelle might choose love over duty. Despite Isabelle's rejection, Oscar did not give up. He knew the feelings he held for her would not fade easily, and the hope that she might one day choose love kept his determination alive. So, Oscar continued to attend every social event where he knew Isabelle would be present. He prepared meticulously, selecting his finest attire and rehearsing words that might touch her heart. At every ball and elegant dinner, Oscar found ways to be near Isabelle, even if only for a brief greeting. He did not wish to pressure her, only to let her know she was there, always ready to listen and to care.
Even with Baron Poulin constantly by her side, Oscar found discreet ways to express his affection. One evening, he left a single white rose on Isabelle's seat during dinner, a symbol of purity and eternal love. She discovered the flower, looked around, and her eyes met his for an instant. In that fleeting glance, she understood the depth of his feelings. Oscar continued to persist, believing that every small gesture, every comforting word, and every shared glance might one day reach Isabelle's heart. He was willing to wait, to be patient, and to fight for the love he felt, believing that one day she would finally have the freedom to choose her own destiny. In the days that followed, he continued to encounter her at social gatherings, always trying to start meaningful conversations or show his affection through small gestures. Yet, more and more, Isabelle seemed distant and uncomfortable. Oscar began to realize that instead of drawing her closer, he was inadvertently pushing her away. One quiet afternoon, during a garden tea hosted by a count, Oscar approached Isabelle while she stood alone, gazing at the flowers. He tried to start a conversation, but before he could say a word, she turned to him with a serious expression. "Lord Oscar, I need to speak with you," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "Of course, Isabelle. What is it?" he asked, concerned. She sighed, searching for the right words. "Your constant attempts to court me are beginning to feel like a burden." Oscar was stunned. His words caught in his throat. I never meant to offend you, Isabelle. I only wanted you to know how much you mean to me." Isabelle nodded, her gaze softening slightly. "I understand, Lord Oscar, but you must understand my position as well. I am engaged to Baron Poulin, and every time you approach me in this manner, I feel as though you're disrespecting my commitment. It makes me feel as though my dignity is being undermined." He felt his heart tighten, the pain of realizing that his efforts had caused her distress. "I never meant to disrespect you, Isabelle. I only wanted you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what." She placed a gentle hand on his arm. "I know, Lord Oscar, and I'm grateful for that. But please, you must stop these gestures. They only make things harder for me." Oscar nodded slowly, feeling the weight of her words. "I understand. I don't want to cause you any more pain. I'll respect your wishes." She smiled sadly. "Thank you, Lord Oscar. I hope we can remain friends without this tension between us." Oscar felt a mix of relief and sorrow. He knew he had to set his feelings aside and respect the boundaries Isabelle had drawn. Though his heart was heavy, he
He understood that true love also meant letting go when necessary. At the following events, Oscar kept a respectful distance, speaking to Isabelle only in friendly, casual exchanges. He still watched her from afar, his love quietly enduring, but his attempts to court her had ceased. He continued to wish for Isabelle's happiness, even if it meant not being part of her life as he had dreamed. The pain of unrequited love was difficult to bear, but Oscar was determined to preserve both his dignity and hers, showing that his love was pure and selfless. And so he remained a constant, silent, and respectful presence, hoping that time would bring peace to their hearts. The days passed quickly, and Isabelle's wedding to Baron Poulin drew near. Each sunrise brought a heavier weight upon Oscar's shoulders, a growing fear of losing the true love of his life forever. He often wandered through the fields and forests surrounding the estate, searching for a solution, a final hope that could change the cruel fate unfolding before him. He saw Isabelle at various events, her smile now rare, her once radiant eyes dimmed by sadness and resignation. Desperation filled his heart, and he knew he had to do something, anything, to prevent Isabelle from being condemned to a loveless fate. One starry night, just days before the wedding, Oscar decided he could wait no longer. He needed to see Isabelle, to show her the depth of his love in a way that words could never convey. With his heart racing, he made his way to the mansion's garden, knowing she often went there to find a moment of peace. He found her sitting on a bench, surrounded by the gentle fragrance of roses. She seemed lost in thought, the moonlight casting a silvery glow across her face. Oscar approached quietly, his heart pounding in his chest. "Isabelle," he called softly. She turned, surprised and perhaps a little relieved to see him. "Lord Oscar, what are you doing here? It's late," she said, trying to conceal the unease in her voice. "I had to see you," he replied with his voice filled with emotion. "I can't bear the thought of losing you without trying one last time." She sighed, her gaze heavy with sadness. "Lord Oscar, I've already told you there's nothing we can do. The wedding is set and I must fulfill my duty." "But Isabelle, you don't love him. I love you, and I know in my heart that you love me too. Tell me what you feel for me. This cannot simply be ignored," he pleaded, stepping closer. She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I have no choice, Lord Oscar. My duty is to my family and to the Baron." Oscar's despair reached its peak. Without thinking, driven by a force greater than himself, he took her hands in his. "Isabelle, please," he whispered. And before she could respond, he pulled her close and kissed her passionately. As the kiss unfolded, Isabelle felt a storm of conflicting emotions. Part of her was indignant, outraged by Oscar's boldness and his failure to respect the boundaries she had set. But another part of her couldn't ignore the intensity of the passion burning between them. It was a kiss filled with every repressed feeling, every ounce of pain, hope, and love he held for her. For a brief moment, the world around them disappeared. There was only warmth and the fire of their joined hearts. Isabelle stood frozen, torn and astonished. The kiss had awakened emotions she had tried so hard to bury, feelings locked deep within her heart. When Oscar finally pulled away, both were breathless. She looked at him, her eyes glistening with tears and confusion. I can't," she whispered, taking a step back, her voice trembling. "Lord Oscar, this only makes everything harder. I am promised to another. Please understand." Oscar felt another wave of despair, yet also understanding. He knew he loved her more than anything, but he also knew he couldn't force Isabelle to defy her own sense of duty. "I just wanted you to know," he said softly, his voice heavy with sorrow. "I will always love you, Isabelle." With those words, he walked away, leaving Isabelle in the garden, lost in a whirlwind of emotions. She knew she loved Oscar, but she also knew that her path had been laid out differently. The stolen kiss would remain in her memory, an eternal reminder of what could have been, but perhaps never could be. After the kiss, Isabelle found herself engulfed in overwhelming confusion. She tried to suppress the feelings it had awakened, focusing instead on her duty to marry the Baron. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't ignore the sense that something had changed between her and Oscar. Deep down, Isabelle knew she couldn't simply erase the kiss from her mind. She found herself reliving every moment, every touch, every glance they had shared, and despite her initial indignation, she couldn't deny the attraction she felt for Oscar, an attraction that only seemed to grow stronger with time. But along with that attraction came a terrible sense of guilt. Isabelle knew her duty was to her family, to Baron Poulin. The wedding was arranged, and she couldn't simply abandon it over an impulsive kiss. Social pressure, family expectations, all of it weighed heavily upon her, making her choice even more painful. As the wedding day drew near, Isabelle felt increasingly torn. She tried to focus on the preparations, on the upcoming festivities, but Oscar's kiss haunted her, filling her thoughts with doubt and uncertainty. She often stared out the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of Oscar in the distance, longing for a hope she knew was almost impossible. Deep within her heart, Isabelle knew a decision had to be made. She could not go on living divided between duty and desire. The stolen kiss had changed everything, opening her eyes to what true love was and to the prison her life would become without it. Now she needed to find the courage to face her destiny and decide which path to follow.
Isabelle's rejection struck Oscar like an arrow to the heart. Depressed and disheartened, he withdrew from the social events he once attended so frequently. The elegant parties, the grand balls, the gatherings of high society, all of it lost its brilliance in Oscar's eyes. Isabelle, despite her efforts to hide it, felt an emptiness in her chest every time he wasn't around. She missed him at every social event he no longer attended. She realized that, despite her initial rejection, Oscar had become an essential part of her life. On the day of the wedding, Isabelle awoke with her heart heavy, her mind a storm of emotions. As she dressed for the ceremony, she looked at the white gown hanging in the wardrobe, a symbol of a fate that felt increasingly distant from what she truly desired. Each piece of clothing she put on felt like a weight upon her shoulders, a painful reminder of a future she had not chosen. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she saw the image of a woman trapped in a destiny that wasn't her own. Isabelle's heart was in turmoil, her emotions a roller coaster of fear, uncertainty, and a flicker of hope. At the church, the air was thick with tension and expectation. Isabelle walked down the aisle, her arm linked with her father's, but her heart was elsewhere. Each step toward the altar felt like a prison sentence, a silent confirmation of a future she did not want. Her eyes drifted away from the Baron, who awaited her with a forced smile, toward the church doors, where the sunlight streaming through seemed to promise an escape. When the priest's words echoed through the church, asking if Isabelle took the Baron as her lawful husband, she found herself unable to speak the expected words. Her lips trembled, her heart raced wildly, and then the words burst from her. "No, I can't." A stunned silence fell over the church as Isabelle turned and ran out, her flowing gown trailing behind her like a banner of freedom. Outside, she found Oscar, her true love, waiting for her. Their eyes met in an instant of mutual recognition, and then they rushed into each other's arms, clinging together as though grasping a piece of salvation amid the chaos. Together, they fled through the city streets, their racing hearts pounding like war drums in their ears.
Adrenaline pushed them forward as they left behind the weight of expectations and obligations. Each step was a liberation. Each street they crossed was a declaration of independence. As Isabelle and Oscar ran, their actions sent shockwaves through the city, causing an uproar among the highest social circles. Baron Poulin was furious, his face red with outrage as he shouted for vengeance. Both families fell into disarray, with whispers of scandal echoing through noble halls and elegant corridors. But Isabelle and Oscar did not waver. Holding tightly to each other, they faced the tide of criticism and condemnation with the strength of those who know they are following the right path. Their love was a flame that burned brighter with every obstacle, fueled by the conviction that they were meant to be together. As time passed, society's perspective began to shift. The whispers of disapproval were replaced by murmurs of admiration and respect. Isabelle and Oscar became something of a modern legend, a love story that defied convention and triumphed over adversity. Their tale was told at fine dinners and grand parties, inspiring others to believe in the power of true love. Finally, in a beautiful and deeply meaningful ceremony, Isabelle and Oscar exchanged vows of eternal love. Beneath a starlit sky, surrounded by loyal friends and family who had finally come to understand, they became husband and wife, sealing their union with a kiss that would echo through the ages.